The deep silence of space was shattered by a deafening explosion. The royal vessel of the Seraphis Empire, a sleek silver craft adorned with intricate patterns of blue and gold, was spiraling out of control toward a primitive, uncharted planet. Inside, Queen Lyria clutched the armrest, her usually composed demeanor replaced by fear. The enemy forces of the Cruel had attacked suddenly, and now their ship was on a collision course with an unknown world. The planet loomed larger in the viewport, its surface a swirling mix of green and blue. The ship's alarms blared, red lights flashing as the crew desperately tried to stabilize the descent. Lyria's heart pounded in her chest. Her thoughts raced to her family, her mate, King Theros, and their 2 children, waiting for her safe return. She closed her eyes, whispering a silent prayer to the ancient spirits of her people. The craft crashed through the atmosphere, leaving a trail of fire in its wake, before finally coming to rest in a dense green forest. The impact was tremendous, tearing apart the metal hull and scattering debris across the landscape. Trees snapped like twigs and the ground shook violently. Lyria, bruised but alive, emerged from the wreckage. Her advanced bioluminescent armor flickered as it tried to self-repair, the soft glow casting an eerie light on the surrounding foliage. Gritting her teeth against the pain, Lyria surveyed the crash site. The once magnificent vessel was now a twisted heap of metal and wires. She knew she had to move quickly. The Cruel would not be far behind. But in this unfamiliar world, she was vulnerable and alone. Miles away, a human named Caden, a hunter-gatherer from a small tribe, saw the strange fire in the sky. Intrigued and alarmed, he set out to investigate. Caden was tall and muscular, his skin tanned from years of living under the sun. His sharp eyes and keen instincts had made him one of the best hunters in his tribe. He moved silently through the forest, his steps light and purposeful. As he approached the crash site, Caden's breath caught in his throat. The massive structure lying broken in the forest was unlike anything he had ever seen. He edged closer, his curiosity battling with his fear. Among the wreckage, he spotted a figure, tall, slender, and glowing with an otherworldly light. She was unlike any creature he had ever encountered. Caden's eyes widened as he saw Lyria. Despite his fear, he felt a deep, inexplicable urge to help her. Gathering his courage, he stepped forward, making his presence known. He held up his hands in a gesture of peace, hoping she would understand. Lyria turned to face the source of the sound, her eyes narrowing as she scanned the forest. Her training as a queen had taught her to be wary, but also to recognize potential allies. The human before her, though primitive, did not seem hostile. In fact, his concern was evident in his eyes. With a wince, she gestured to the wreckage and spoke in a language he could not understand. Caden, sensing her distress, offered his hand. Their eyes met, and in that moment, a silent understanding passed between them. He would help her, and in turn, she would place her trust in this primitive human. Together, they moved away from the wreckage, Lyria leaning on Caden for support. The forest closed in around them, its dense foliage providing a semblance of safety. As they walked, Caden pointed to various plants and fruits, indicating which were safe to eat. Lyria, quick to adapt, mimicked his actions, her appreciation growing for this strange yet resourceful human. They made camp for the night under a canopy of stars. Lyria used her advanced technology to create a small protective barrier around their camp, warding off any predators. Caden watched in awe as she activated the device, a soft blue light enveloping their shelter. Despite the fear and uncertainty, there was a sense of wonder in the air. As they sat by the fire, Lyria studied Caden. His features were strong, his eyes filled with curiosity and kindness. She realized that despite their differences, they shared a common will to survive and protect. She pointed to herself and said, "Lyria." Caden nodded, understanding. He placed a hand on his chest and replied, "Caden." In that moment, a bond was formed, one that would see them through the challenges ahead. The queen and the hunter-gatherer, 2 beings from vastly different worlds, united by fate and a shared determination to survive. The night wore on, the stars above witnessing the beginning of an extraordinary journey. Caden led Lyria through the dense forest, carefully avoiding dangerous wildlife and natural traps. The queen followed, her steps unsteady but determined. As they walked, Caden tried to communicate using gestures and simple words, pointing out edible plants and sources of water. Lyria, quick to adapt, mimicked his actions, her appreciation growing for this strange yet resourceful human. Their journey was arduous. The forest was alive with the sounds of unfamiliar creatures, and the terrain was rough and uneven. Caden moved with the grace and confidence of someone who had spent his entire life in these woods, while Lyria, despite her injuries, kept pace admirably. She was fascinated by the flora and fauna of this world, so different from the sterile environment of her home planet. One day, as they were crossing a river, Lyria slipped on a wet rock and fell into the fast-moving water. Caden reacted instantly, diving in after her. The current was strong, but Caden was stronger. He reached Lyria and pulled her to safety, his arms wrapped tightly around her. As they collapsed on the riverbank, panting and soaked, Lyria looked at Caden with gratitude and newfound respect. As days turned into weeks, the bond between them deepened. They learned to understand each other without words, relying on expressions and actions. Caden showed Lyria the beauty of his world, the majestic mountains, the serene rivers, and the vibrant wildlife. In return, Lyria shared stories of the stars, of her empire, and the war that had brought her to this primitive planet. One evening, as they sat by their campfire, Lyria activated a small holographic projector. A three-dimensional image of her family appeared in the air, her mate, King Theros, and their two children. Caden watched in awe as the figures moved and smiled, their features delicate and alien. Lyria's eyes welled with tears as she spoke of her longing to return to them. Caden, moved by her sadness, vowed to help her find a way back. Caden led Lyria to a hidden cave he had discovered years ago. The entrance was concealed by thick vines, and inside, it was spacious and dry. It would serve as a safe haven while they planned their next move. Lyria used her technology to set up a small communication device, hoping to send a distress signal to any nearby Seraphis ships. The forest was both friend and foe. It provided them with food and shelter, but it also harbored dangers. One night as they slept, a pack of wild beasts approached their camp. Caden woke to the sound of growling and quickly grabbed his spear. Lyria, alerted by the noise, activated a defensive shield. The beasts, startled by the sudden burst of light and energy, retreated into the darkness. As they sat by the fire, Caden and Lyria's conversations grew more profound. They shared their hopes, fears, and dreams, finding solace in each other's company. Caden spoke of his tribe and their simple, yet fulfilling way of life. Lyria described the advanced technology and vast cities of her home, painting a picture of a world beyond Caden's imagination. Despite the growing bond, Lyria's thoughts often drifted to her family and her responsibilities as a queen. She felt a deep sense of duty to her people and knew that she couldn't stay on this planet forever. Caden, sensing her inner turmoil, assured her that they would find a way to send her home. One morning, as they were foraging for food, they came across a group of humans from Caden's tribe. The men were wary at first, their eyes widening at the sight of Lyria. Caden explained the situation as best as he could, and the tribe, though initially hesitant, agreed to help. Back at the tribe's village, Lyria was met with a mixture of curiosity and fear. The elders, wise and cautious, listened to Caden's account and observed Lyria with interest. She demonstrated her technology, healing a wounded hunter with her medical device, and creating a protective barrier around the village. The tribe was amazed and began to accept her as one of their own. Caden and Lyria continued their search for a way to communicate with the Seraphis Empire. They scoured the forest for materials to enhance Lyria's communication device, often venturing into dangerous territory. Their determination never wavered, and their bond grew stronger with each passing day. One night, as they sat by the fire, Lyria looked at Caden with a mixture of gratitude and sorrow. She knew that their time together was limited, and the thought of leaving him filled her with sadness. Caden, sensing her emotions, took her hand and squeezed it gently. They sat in silence, the fire casting flickering shadows around them, their unspoken words hanging in the air. The journey had changed them both. Lyria had come to appreciate the simplicity and beauty of Caden's world, while Caden had gained a deeper understanding of the vast universe beyond his own. They had formed a bond that transcended their differences, a bond forged in the crucible of survival and mutual respect. As the stars twinkled above, Lyria made a silent promise to herself. She would find a way to return to her people, but she would never forget the brave and kind human who had saved her life and shown her the wonders of his world. And Caden, though he knew their time together was fleeting, cherished every moment, knowing that he had made a friend among the stars. Unknown to Lyria and Caden, the cruel forces were still searching for the downed Seraphis vessel. A scout ship, detecting the remnants of Lyria's signal, descended upon the planet. Caden and Lyria were on a hunt when the sky darkened with the arrival of the cruel ship. The forest trembled as the massive craft landed, and cruel soldiers disembarked, their menacing forms stark against the greenery. Lyria's eyes widened in fear and recognition. The cruel were ruthless, and if they captured her, her fate would be sealed. Caden, sensing the danger, grabbed Lyria's hand and pulled her into the thick foliage. They moved swiftly, Caden's knowledge of the terrain giving them an advantage. The cruel were relentless, but Caden's instincts and Lyria's quick thinking kept them one step ahead. They maneuvered through the dense forest, using the natural cover to evade detection. Caden led Lyria to a hidden cave he had discovered as a child, its entrance concealed by thick vines and underbrush. Inside it was dark and cool, providing a temporary sanctuary. Lyria activated her distress beacon, a small device that emitted a faint, pulsing signal. It was a risky move, but their only hope of rescue. She adjusted the frequency, hoping to reach any nearby Seraphis ships. Caden watched as the device glowed softly, a beacon of hope in their dire situation. For hours, they hid in the cave, the sounds of the cruel search parties echoing outside. Lyria, exhausted and injured, leaned against the cold stone wall, her eyes closing in fatigue. Caden stood guard, his senses on high alert. Suddenly, a different sound filled the air, the familiar hum of a Seraphis ship. Bursting out of the cave, Lyria and Caden saw a sleek, silver craft descending. The cruel, caught off guard, scattered as the Seraphis soldiers emerged, weapons blazing. A fierce battle ensued, but the Seraphis forces were well prepared and quickly overwhelmed the cruel. Lyria's heart leapt as she saw her mate, King Theros, leading the charge. With tears in her eyes, she ran towards him. Theros, shocked but overjoyed, embraced her tightly. His eyes, filled with gratitude, turned to Caden, who stood a few paces away, watching the reunion with a mixture of relief and sadness. As the battle raged on, the cruel forces attempted a desperate last stand. Lyria, knowing the layout of their ship from her capture, directed the Seraphis soldiers to key points, helping them disable the enemy's weapon systems. Caden, armed with a spear and guided by instinct, fought alongside the Seraphis, his bravery and skill surprising even the seasoned soldiers. The tide of battle turned, and the cruel were finally defeated. The Seraphis soldiers secured the area, and Lyria introduced Caden to Theros, explaining how this primitive human had saved her life. Theros, initially skeptical, saw the sincerity in his queen's eyes and the genuine humility in Caden's demeanor. He extended a hand to Caden, a gesture of profound respect. The Seraphis ship prepared for departure, its engines humming with energy. Lyria and Theros stood by the ramp, ready to board. Lyria turned to Caden, her eyes filled with gratitude and sorrow. She placed a small glowing amulet in his hand, a token of her appreciation and a symbol of their unlikely friendship. "Thank you, Caden," she said softly, her voice carrying the weight of her emotions. "You have not only saved my life, but also shown me the beauty of your world. I will never forget you." Caden, holding the amulet tightly, nodded. "And I will never forget you, Lyria. You have shown me that there is so much more beyond the stars." As the ship ascended, the wind from its engines blowing through his hair, Caden watched until it disappeared into the sky. He felt a strange mix of emotions, pride, sadness, and a deep sense of wonder. As the ship disappeared into the sky, he knew that his life would never be the same. Back on the Seraphis homeworld, news of Lyria's rescue spread quickly. The people rejoiced, and the story of the primitive human who saved their queen became a legend. Theros, though relieved to have his queen back, often found himself reflecting on the bravery and resourcefulness of the human named Caden. On Earth, Caden returned to his tribe, the amulet around his neck glowing softly. He shared his extraordinary adventure with his people, becoming a revered figure among them. His encounter with Lyria had changed him, broadening his perspective and filling him with a sense of hope and possibility. The forest, once a place of simple survival, now held memories of an epic journey and an unlikely friendship. As Caden looked up at the stars each night, he felt a connection to the cosmos, knowing that somewhere out there, Queen Lyria and King Theros remembered him as well. The Seraphis soldiers worked diligently, repairing the ship and securing the perimeter. The forest, once a tranquil refuge, now bore the scars of battle. Caden, standing at the edge of the clearing, watched as Lyria and Theros conferred with their commanders. He felt a mixture of pride and sadness, knowing that his time with Lyria was coming to an end. As the Seraphis ship prepared for departure, Lyria and Theros walked towards Caden. Theros extended his hand, a gesture of gratitude and respect. "Caden, your bravery and kindness have saved our queen. We are forever in your debt." Caden shook Theros's hand, his grip firm and respectful. "It was an honor to help. I just did what anyone would do." Lyria stepped forward, her eyes shimmering with emotion. She placed a small, glowing amulet in Caden's hand. "This is a token of our gratitude. It is a symbol of our bond, and it will always remind us of the courage and kindness of a human named Caden." Caden looked at the amulet, its soft glow illuminating his face. He felt a deep connection to Lyria and her people, a bond that transcended their differences. "Thank you, Lyria. I will cherish this always." As the ship's engines roared to life, the Seraphis soldiers boarded, securing the last of their equipment. Lyria and Theros turned to Caden one last time, their expressions a mixture of gratitude and sorrow. "Farewell, Caden. May your days be filled with peace and joy," Lyria said, her voice carrying the weight of their shared experiences. Caden watched as the ramp retracted and the ship began to lift off the ground. The wind from the engines whipped through his hair, and he raised a hand in farewell. As the ship ascended into the sky, he felt a profound sense of loss, but also a deep sense of fulfillment. Back on the Seraphis homeworld, the return of Queen Lyria was met with celebration and relief. The people rejoiced, and the story of the primitive human who saved their queen quickly spread. Lyria and Theros often spoke of Caden, their memories of him filled with admiration and gratitude. The amulet he wore became a symbol of the bond between their worlds, a reminder that even in the vastness of the universe, kindness and bravery could unite the most unlikely of beings. Lyria resumed her duties as queen, her experiences on Earth giving her a renewed sense of purpose and compassion. She introduced new initiatives aimed at fostering peace and understanding, inspired by the simple wisdom and resilience of the human who had saved her life. Theros, too, was changed by the encounter, his perspective broadened by the bravery and resourcefulness of Caden. On Earth, Caden returned to his tribe, the amulet around his neck glowing softly. He shared his extraordinary adventure with his people, becoming a revered figure among them. His encounter with Lyria had changed him, broadening his perspective and filling him with a sense of hope and possibility. Years passed, but the memory of Lyria and her people remained vivid in Caden's mind. He often looked up at the stars, wondering about his friends in the Seraphis Empire, and knowing that, somewhere out there, they remembered him too. The amulet, a constant reminder of their bond, continued to glow softly, a beacon of hope and a symbol of the extraordinary journey they had shared. One night, as Caden sat by the fire, he noticed a faint light in the sky. It grew brighter, and he realized it was a Seraphis ship descending towards the forest. His heart raced with excitement and anticipation. The ship landed gently, and the ramp lowered, revealing Lyria and Theros. "Caden!" Lyria called out, her voice filled with joy. "We have come to visit, to honor our bond and to share our worlds." Caden's face broke into a wide smile as he rushed to greet them. The reunion was filled with laughter and stories, the bond between them stronger than ever. The visit marked the beginning of a new chapter, one where the Seraphis Empire and Caden's tribe would continue to learn from each other, their friendship a testament to the power of kindness and courage. As the stars twinkled above, Caden knew that his life had been forever changed by his encounter with Lyria. He had discovered that, even in the vastness of the universe, connections could be forged, and friendships could bloom. And as he looked at the glowing amulet, he felt a profound sense of peace, knowing that he was part of something much greater than himself. The journey had transformed not just Lyria and Caden, but their entire worlds, bringing them closer and creating a legacy of unity and understanding that would endure for generations to come. The tale of the alien queen and the primitive human became a legend, a story passed down through the ages, inspiring countless others to look beyond their differences and find the common threads that bound them together.